course, the Star Wars podcast. My name's Phil, of course. I'm joined, as usual, by Dave and George for another list video, our second one. Good evening, guys.
Good evening, good evening.
And of course, this time I'm actually here. The last time that the guys did the video, our very first list video, I was in Krakow in Poland, Cinquia Polska. It was a very, very good trip. However, happy to be back and glad to be doing our list video because I missed the last one. And I did listen to it. It's just one of those things we were talking on our show last week, saying, "Oh, I had a phantom listener from Poland." I was like, no, that was just me. I downloaded it whilst I was out there.
Yeah, you ruined it for me. I was really excited for a second. I was like, oh, it was Phil.
I can't help it. I wanted to listen to the show, and it was a very good show indeed. I'm excited to come back and do it. So yeah, this is so for me, it's my first list video. My first list video. It's our second list video, but this time around, we're talking about Star Wars video games, ones we've grown up with, our favorite ones throughout the years. It's kind of interesting. As I was saying to the guys before we came on air, the way the list is broken down, it's kind of obvious as to who's got what as to our ages, because Dave is more of an arcadey style, mine's more of the N64, and George, of course, is more of the PlayStation era. So it's kind of like the years go by via the games as well. But we're gonna let George start this off.
Yeah, so the one that I've picked, the very first one, is one of the very first games that I ever owned, which is Star Wars: The Phantom Menace on PS1. Now, this is an iconic game from my childhood. The real question is, I never, ever, if anyone's ever played this is, when you're like 3 years old, you're playing a PS1 game, you're just cool, you got a lightsaber. That opening level where you'd go out the door, you'd synchronize holding square to deflect the bullets from the droids. I can tell you everything about the opening level, maybe a little bit about the second level, and I never, ever got past Naboo. That is like the epitome of like my childhood, was that I never got further than that. And if anyone can hear shouting in the background, I'm going to apologize on the spot as well because it's annoying. Bear with me one moment, gentlemen. I'm going to mute myself if someone has ever played.
Okay, yeah, we'll crack on with it. So it's a game that I know what you mean by how tough it actually was. I had this game as well when it came out, and I had it on a PC. And for the life of me, I'm not a great PC gamer, so it really was a case of like, I could do this with the mouse and things, and it was good. But George says, I mean, it was kind of a platformer at points, and it was kind of a scrolling game, but you're right.
It was a very big mix of the two. Yeah, I do remember playing it, but it was, again, a long time ago.
I think when you're at that age, it's like Crash. If anyone played Crash Bandicoot that came out like a year or two ago, it was so much harder as an adult than as a kid. As a kid, you're just happy with the memories. So I bet if I went back to play Phantom Menace now, it's either really hard or it's really easy. But I just used to remember that whenever I would get far, either accidentally someone would wipe over your save on the memory card or you'd save it where you've got, like, back in these days, kids, they didn't have autosave. You'd manually save it and you'd have like 10 health and you're around the corner from villain, so you're never ever going to come out of the scenario alive. So you'd have to restart the entire game. Now, I would love one day to be able to sit down and play through this. And you know what? PS1s still work. That's the other thing. So it's one of those.
So it is a case that it was a really, really tough game. And I don't know if even if you played it now, I think you wouldn't get any easier. I think part of it was the bit rate and things wasn't quite perfect with it. So
no, it wasn't. It was a bit off. I mean, it was LucasArts' first attempt, wasn't it?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, for a Star Wars game, I think there was an Obi-Wan game on Xbox before that. I don't know, it might have been after, but that was really bad and basic. Just before we get into what was being just a comment from John Parton. Even guys, love this podcast. Like the new format. Keep the good work.
Oh, thank you.
He's doing good work. Yeah, that was Star Wars the Arcade. Sorry, it wasn't. That was that. Spoiler alert.
Jump ahead of yourself there, Dave.
Yeah, the Phantom Menace. So I'm going to just jump into my choice now, which is the Star Wars Arcade. Now, I'm not talking about the one where you got the joystick and you were fighting against the flying around Hoth, things like that. Nothing as good as that. We're talking about the old cabinet, the glory days of arcade gaming, and we're literally talking about wireframe here. This was the first introduction to a Star Wars game I ever played. I've been in that cockpit. It's an incredible thing. It was like 2 levels. One, you fly towards the Death Star, then you're in the trench run, and repeat. It just that was it. There was 2 levels of wireframed TIE fighters, and it was just, I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't good, but for the fact you could sit in a cabinet and be inside of the flying against the Death Star, it was something I absolutely adored. And I believe it on one of the Rogue Squadron games, or it was an actual bonus level on one of them on the N64. So you'd have, not the N64, one of the Nintendos it was. And you could actually play it.
It was the N64 because it was the bonus level in the game I'm talking about next.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, so cool. So that was my first introduction to Star Wars, and it's always stuck. I always love to see it. It makes me nostalgic, no matter how poor a gaming experience it might have been.
Well, that's one of those things when you look back at certain games, rose-tinted goggles, where you go, the game was great, and then you realise, hang on a second, no, the game was terrible. But it's the memory that you take away from it. My introduction to that was actually in what I'm talking about next, but it was that bonus level. So I have actually played the arcade. I have played the wireframe, and it was simplistic, but at the same time, it's fun. It's that introduction. It's that kind of your first foray into it, and for the time, again, it was still good.
I've never played it. Sorry, I know that's my.
That's absolutely fine. Even a thing, and to be honest, you would get very bored very quickly. It's no.
I've played one arcade. Now I know this is off topic. I'm going to do this as quick as I can. I was in Spain as a kid. There was a pod racing game, but it was a full arcade. You sat in a pod racer. I know there's a game that's different that could be spoken about later. It might not be, but
that is the exact same.
That exact one. I'm going to be quiet then because I don't know if you meant the original PS2 game. I will talk later on about arcade things then.
Yeah, no, this is the exact. Again, I've got like coming from you're pinching my pinching my lips without me even
apologise.
Word.
Well, we might as well move on to it, sir.
Yeah, indeed. So my fifth pick, my very first pick here is Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Rogue Squadron came out on the PC and came out later on the N64 in 1998. So at this point, I was 7 years old. I did have my first console back in 2000, 2001, something like that. And this was one of the very first games I got, and I absolutely adored Rogue Squadron. It's one of those games it's very simple. Again, X-Wings, TIE Fighters, Bombers, Y-Wings, but it's just, again, so the graphics are better than the wireframe, obviously, but again, very simple, very basic game. However, it put you in the seat of Luke Skywalker, Wedge Antilles, Biggs Darklight. It gave you the full-on Rogue Squadron experience that they'd started to expand upon in the old EU, and it was just a fantastic game. I absolutely adore that thing.
It was a game that was, when it first came in, I first played it. It was that amazing thing of being actually able to fly an X-Wing, some of these levels, like to fly around Tatooine and fly around Hoth in what at that point was just groundbreaking. The way you could play it, it was absolutely. It was it was a game that people were crying out for after the old X-Wing and TIE Fighter games, and then to get this sort of move on from that was awesome.
I again haven't played this. This is the whole era thing. So I think there may be something I have not played. There may be something I have, but certainly pre my birthday, I definitely haven't played many of the games. But
indeed,
you come across them. You come across them.
Youth and exuberance showing across.
You come across them on YouTube, and maybe I'll see some more. Who knows?
It's probably the choice. Sometimes it might be the best way to view them by watching someone else play them. Just
again, for those of us who have
to go through.
Yeah, for those of us who have played it, it's that rose-tinted goggles effect I was saying earlier. It's that kind of nostalgia effect.
Oh, totally.
The game wasn't great. The story wasn't amazing. However, it did take you through. Again, quite a few of the levels were bits of the original trilogy, but it added a bit of extra outside it as well. So that kind of first kind of glimpse at a wider Star Wars universe. And again, to actually play as an X-Wing, to have that, it was third-person view. I think it had a couple of cockpit views as well, but to have that very first feeling that we'll talk about later on when we come to newer Star Wars games where you get properly immersive. This is your kind of first experience of that kind of jumping into actually being part of it. And I absolutely adored that game.
It was an awesome game as well. It's a good one to add on the list.
Indeed. So that was our fifth pick. So we're going to move on to our next was pick number 4. Now, the game that these two are about to talk about, Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, I have played quite a bit. I didn't put it on my particular list, however, I know these guys have, and I'll mention my thoughts on it afterwards. But guys, take it away.
Go, George.
This is PS3, sort of 2008, I want to say 2007-8. Now, my best memory of this game isn't the actual game; it's the demo. PlayStation Network had just become a thing. This concept of downloading demos and downloading games off an online store was incredible. Now, this is a demo I played on repeat for months. Never actually got the game. Played at my friend's house when he got it. I just remember the carnage. You could chop the limbs off. You could choke them. You could stab them. You could do whatever you wanted to do. The gameplay was amazing. I didn't care about the story at that age. Not that age, because I was still a teenager, like just turned 13, whatever, into gaming. But it was only until a couple of years later where I respected the storyline. I loved it up until the final ending / Force Unleashed 2. But it was just so fun to play while actually being an engaging storyline as well. That's my kind of main vibe with it.
I absolutely agree. To get this, the technology behind the game was something that we'll go on in a second. But you're right, to get this new linear story, and at the time was, in bunny quotes, canon. It was given this new story about Vader's apprentice, played awesomely by Sam Witwer. Go on to be Darth Maul. So awesome ties in there as well. This was his first foray into Lucasfilm to start playing roles in there. I think he also voiced Palpatine in it as well, I believe. But yeah, so this game was awesome. We got a brand new story. It was a really good in-depth story. You started out playing as Darth Vader in the first level, going around throwing Wookiees and Stormtroopers around. So it was all this amazing step in when you went in. And then you got this new technology. Is it the Havoc system for the breaking of glass and things like that?
No, it was like a big deal at the time, wasn't it?
It was huge, yeah. You said it couldn't be done before, but now you could break trees open and bits would fly over and pick things up and glass would shatter the way glass would break, kind of. But the technology at the time, it was a massive advance on the way game physics worked. And it was a game that you had to rush out and get. I adore Force Unleashed. I've got it on my Xbox One now as a game from the store. It's a game I still sometimes revisit and play. Mostly the first level where you throw Wookiees around.
No, I've got it on Steam.
Got mine there, right in there. I've got a bunch of PS3 games never got rid of. That is one alongside another Star Wars one, which shall be discussed.
Indeed, no, I've got it on Steam. I've played it a bunch of times. I mean, my memory of it actually is playing it at my friend's house, playing at Robin's house, who we've had on before. I didn't own it at the time. I got it later on, but I remember playing through it with him, watching him go through every single level. I think we just stayed up about 18 to 24 hours, so it is start to finish, playing the entire game, getting all the holocrons, 100%ing it, and just going through the entire game, because it's like, oh, we'll start it, we'll see how it is, and then it's like, oh, this is good. Oh, this is really good. The fact that, again, later on, when you get the Force Unleashed 2 as well, you can change your allegiances between the light side and the dark side, and it was just a really good story. It's what we were kind of crying out for in later Star Wars games that we will be talking about later on for single player mode. But yeah, for a good single player campaign, it was just a good game overall. It wasn't great, but it was just solid. And for the time, 2008, it was, again, the graphics were pretty good. It was just a very solid game.
And when you compare it to then with the brought out Force Unleashed 2, which will not make our list because it was about half an hour long and terrible.
Yeah. The whole clone dynamic, no, was not on board, and I do remember it being absurdly quick, and it just wasn't as good.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, that was honestly my one takeaway from the game. Like, I'm thin. I'm not a completist of a lot of games, but I was like, I'm done.
I mean, you're I know you're over exaggerating by saying, within half an hour, but actually, it was legitimately about 2 hours. You were done.
Yeah, it wasn't a long game at all.
No, legitimately, it was 2 hours. You were done. And
no.
It never lived up to the first game. It was just never any as good. It was also a bit more clunky as well, I found.
Well, it was just the fact that there was actually loads of clones of him, and there'd be another one. It's just like, just F off, like wasting time. That's the politest way of saying it, Be invested. Yeah. I mean, I was lucky I didn't wait for 2. As in, when you're at that age, it's not really you're waiting, and it's like it's Fallen Order. I hope Fallen Order's amazing. I also hope right now there's no sequel. Maybe they would, but we don't know how it's going to end. I don't want a sequel. Just if you've made a great game, thank you. Now let's take another one. let's just have something else. And I don't like sequels to linear games, obviously within reason. Side story, Last of Us to me is the best game ever made. I don't want a Last of Us 2, but it's happening. Now, Philip, you're number 4.
It is. So again, going back in time again, showing my era, my age, is Shadows of the Empire. Shadows of the Empire you can now get on Steam, but yes, I get to look at that cover, just makes me full of nostalgia. Yeah, it came out on the N64 back in 96, I want to say, maybe later than that, I can't remember the exact date. However, it was a brilliant game. If any of you ever have heard of Dash Rendar, this is where he comes from. So the YT2400 that you then see later on in Iron Squadron, Star Wars Rebels, this is the game where it originated. It was a story set alongside the original trilogy, but from a different character's point of view. So the screenshot we have at the moment is Dash Rendar on Hoth. You see the Falcon making its escape there. That is supposedly set in canon at the time, alongside Empire Strikes Back. And at this point, again, you've got to later on fight a ATST in this level, where I'm stuck currently on the on my playthrough on the PC because the controls are very clunky and getting used to it with the mouse is not easy. However, I adore that game. There's a level later on, we take on IG-88 on a train, and it's just the music, the way you're embedded in this game. It's just a fantastic game. The actual, I don't know if either of you two played it, I'll find out in a second, of course, but the actual story was just fantastic. So it was, again, alongside the original trilogy, but a new story alongside it. I absolutely love that game.
It's a game, to be honest, I've only played very briefly, and to be honest, I only played like very start of it when it became available again, like you say, on downloads. I've never played the original on N64. Wasn't a Nintendo kid to a point after it got past the SNES, and then I played it. And you're right, it got really, really awkward to play. It just, you're right, some of these games just don't carry forward well to sort of controllers that we have these days, or like a mouse. It makes it really tough to play. So while I love it, and I love the screenshot we put up with Phil said it was Hoth and the Falcon's taken off, and you look at the graphic quality and you just see that it's just white walls with lines in it, and
it is. It's so good. It's what kind of inspired L337 as well as Dash's droid. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but again, it's so many. They cherry picks bits from that for Hoth, also from the Solo. But yeah, the Hoth level is great. But you got IG-88 on a train. You've got so many other bits and pieces. The music, the game itself was just fantastic, and they actually had it as an arcade game as well. So I've played it both in the arcade and on the N64. But again, one of my driving memories from that game, something you have in Rogue Squadron, but have later on in this as well, is before that you do the 80 run on Hoth, where you do have the cable ties and everything else. It's a moment that's been played in Star Wars games as soon as they could do it. Basically, it's something that's been repeated for so many years. But that was my first introduction into it, was from Shadows of the Empire, and it was just, I love that game.
Never played it. I used to think this was like an adaptation of the what was the book that was thrown in episode 7?
Shadows of the Empire, yeah.
Is that what it was called as well?
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was a comic series or a book, but it was definitely Shadows of the Empire. It was based on
Shadows
that.
of the Empire was a comic series. Again, that was late 90s. No, it's Heirs to the Empire you're thinking of for Thrawn.
That's the one. I used to think that this game was an adaptation on that. Don't know why. Didn't have a Nintendo 64, so that's why I'm very limited. You know, I had two PS1 Star Wars games. One on the list, which is Star Wars Demolition.
No, I mean I have figures from this. I have Prince Zijor from this game. I have so much. There's a lot of background from this game. It was fantastic. This is what I grew up. This is what for me. This was my childhood Star Wars game, and I adore that game. Now it's a case of like, yeah, it's ridiculously clunky and it's harder than you think. But I do love it. Next course, George, it's you and me.
The original Star Wars Battlefront 2, maybe the most iconic Star Wars game of all time, is an argument that's certainly going to be in a lot of lists.
Yeah.
Now, for me, this is a very, very personal, because back in 2005, I was one of the only people in the world that didn't have a PS2. I had to play PC games before the PC Master Race was a real thing. And I woke up.
I love that level of Camino.
Christmas 2005. my like family, they're not big on games. Obviously, I never PS2 for a start, but my grandparents bought me this game, and it was the most unreal thing in the world. Looking at that cover, seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi, then you actually get the gameplay. At this point, I didn't even know this game's been out 6 months. It's been out 1 month, but I just wanted Battlefront 2, and it was without doubt gave me some beautiful memories. And then when I was at secondary school at this Mac, one of the first ever things I did was I wanted Battlefront 2 on my Mac. It had never been released for Mac. Now, to this day, I don't know how it happened. I downloaded a torrent and some kind of software that allowed me to have Star Wars Battlefront 2 on Mac. Now, I upgraded my hard drive 4 years ago now, and I lost. It's somewhere in my room, but I lost Battlefront 2 via the hard drive. However, I was ill of school. This is the. I know I'm overboarding it, but I spent like 3 days of it downloading on a torrent. I didn't know what a torrent was back then. We had rubbish internet, but I spent days looking at like how to install it on Mac and everything. Was ready for all that in 2015 when I knew how to use computers, and I could never find it again. So I have that painful memory, and it always used to freeze on Naboo, which really annoyed me. But in terms of longevity, this game was made an iconic, not even to my childhood, but just to, I think, to Star Wars as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a case of after having Attack of the Clones and having, because it was pre Revenge of the Sith, the game actually came out. But
I thought it was post.
It's the same year, same era. It's that kind of crossover date. But it was one of those things of wanting more from it and having, again, that exploration into the Clone Wars. It was one of my things of when I was watching the prequels, I always wanted more from the clones. It was definitely pre-Clone Wars, so before the TV show came out. Just before we had all that content. So it was one of those things of watching the prequels, I was always fascinated by that. And when you had Battlefront, the original Battlefront was a good game. Battlefront 2 was just on another level. And not only that, it was the fact that, okay, back in the day, of course, you could then screen share and actually have your friends there and play through levels. The fact when you had Jedi come in, you had the heroes come in, had villains come in, it was just this. It's the game that a lot of people compare the new Battlefront 2 to that is the Battlefront 2. So that people use it as a landmark, as a kind of a can it compare, does it measure up to? And it's one of those games, I've played it since then. I've played it with mods, and I've played it with different levels and different ships, and just I've put as much into that game as possible to expand it. And it has held up over time. The graphics haven't held up because, well, the graphics never do. They get to a certain point, and it just looks dated no matter what game it is. However, the actual gameplay itself still sticks around, the audio still sticks around, the actual narrative being the 501st of being Vader's fist and having all, it was just so much extra put into it that I loved.
I had this on the original Xbox, massive big black Xbox, big X on the top. That was a lovely machine, pretty much PC. But yeah, I had this game, and you're right, it was great to be able to go around these levels and go around like Camino and things like that, and just basically it was like fighting for the flags, and it was a very straightforward game back then. It was very much capture the flag and go around shooting lots of people, see all these scenes you've been in. But an awesome game, an absolutely awesome game.
It's not aged as well as I would have liked it to, but it's the nostalgia that comes with it. But yeah, even the storyline, which was compelling, even looking back, it was ironic because this one clone lasted like the entirety of the Clone Wars. Definitely not the case. Not your accelerated growth rate where they're now Captain Rex, but somehow they've done the Battle of Hoth. Fair play. But I just loved it. You know, like what Phil said, you got to be a hero half through level. You got to be a villain. You had some levels that you were favourites. I loved half that you'd been the good guys, half you the bad guys. It made it so much funner. You had
when Darth Maul came into it, everyone was like, "Oh, we're screwed now," because Darth Maul just absolutely wrecks in that game.
So yeah, he was on the PC version.
Was he not?
No, he was in because did they bring him out as like DLC before DLC was a thing?
Maybe, because I played on the PS2 and he was definitely on the PS2 version.
Because I think some of them got it later on, and like, obviously back then you couldn't really do updates. But I think when before obviously EA took over and whatnot, someone modded COD 4 to be Battlefront. I don't know if anyone ever saw them gameplay footage online.
Yeah.
It's well worth looking for. It was really
impressive.
Oh, amazing! I'm going to do that after we finish this.
To be fair, Battlefront 3 was originally planned, and it was being developed. Lucasfilm shut the game down as Battlefront. It's now being released under a different title. I can't remember what it is. You got
Didn't the
different
company
skins.
go bust?
No, they're still going, as far as I'm aware. They may have done.
I thought they got bust because they did the Lord of the Rings one, which was a carbon copy, and then they were doing Battlefront. And I swear that is it Pandorix or something like that. I can't remember the gas mask logo.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm convinced they shut down. That might be me, but
No, the game's
so
still
many
going.
studios now that come and go. It's it's hard to keep up with the gaming industry.
Yeah. No, the game is still it's still in development. It's now coming out as a completely different story. They've changed the skins basically. The actual underframe of the game is what Battlefront 3 was originally going to be. Interesting when it comes out, but yeah, it is a game that has been measured too. So when EA took over, it's okay. How does this stack up against it?
Definitely.
Indeed. So we're getting through this quite quickly. Dave, you're up next with the game I have played. I got it on again through Steam. Dark Forces. Again, it's before my time, but I have played it and have enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, it's a game that when Doom first came out for the PC, and it was a game that everyone, obviously, you had Doom, and everyone had Doom on their PC, even if it took like 15 or 16 floppy disks to get Doom on your PC. Floppy disks, for any children listening, are blue disks that had to go into the side of the PC that held about a thumbnail picture's worth of data. So you get some games that were over many disks.
Not even that. It was like 12
Yeah,
megabytes or something ridiculous.
They were crazy small. But yeah, so Dark Forces was sort of came after this. When Doom was out, people again released a modification where you could change the characters, the sprites, to Star Wars sprites. And then eventually, the first Star Wars shoot 'em up game really came out. First player shoot 'em up came out, which was Dark Forces. This was an awesome game. I mean, it was literally Doom, but you were in a Star Wars universe, Star Wars blasters, shooting stormtroopers. A game, again, I will repeat, I'm not a game completist. I played this for many hours, and I have no idea if I came anywhere close to finishing the game. It was very cool. You got to, I think it started, the first level was you were stealing the Death Star plans, which is awesome. And you literally just walked in a room and picked them up off a computer. Nothing like Jin had to do. There was none of that. Krennic wasn't even there. His mobile was out, being parked somewhere. But yeah, so this was, for the time when it came out, when you were in that very much a Doom generation who loved that, like Wolfenstein and your Doom games, this came out, and for me, this, although it probably wasn't as good, it topped them off for me because I was playing in the Star Wars world, which I wasn't really able to do before that.
It's a game that really that rose tinted goggles bit does apply to, because it is Doom meets Star Wars. The graphics these days are terrible. However, the game itself is just fun. You die a lot because, again, it is Doom meets Star Wars, so you don't beat it. Again, I've never completed it either. I have played it quite a lot, put a lot of hours into it. Again, I have no idea how close I am or how close I'll get to completing the damn thing. However, it is one of those games where you just stick it on for a few hours and you just get lost in, what is essentially, as you said, Doom for Star Wars, but it's just that you get frustrated to a point, you put it down, but at the same time, you can't help but go, oh, I'll pick it back up, I'll see how I can do it. And it is a lot of fun. And George, I'm assuming again you've not played this. You're just gonna get no, before my time, before my time.
I like old games. The problem is besides Uncharted, where I wasn't like not into games, but we were quite strict on being into games. The problem when he got PS3, I was a bit of a nutcase for a couple of years, playing too much games. So like, it's one thing one day in a long time from now, if I could, have like Arabic money, just go into CEX and just buy a catalogue of old games and the consoles and be like, well, here we go. But the other thing is it makes it so much harder to want to go back and play them when you know it's a story. Not to disrespect it, it's a controversial point, but because it's not canon, it makes it harder for me to put the commitment into the story. Granted, there are many memories to be had, and I didn't bring it. What should have been on my list was Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. I've realized that about half an hour ago, but some games you can go back to, which I personally will from a nostalgic viewpoint. But for something new, it's really hard. And I've again, this is one of the games I've heard so much about, but I'm never going to get around to getting.
You see, I have both Dark Forces and Dark Forces 2, both on my laptop from Steam. It's one of those things of when I say I have a lot of the games from Steam, I'm looking at
Humble
my list.
Bundle.
Like, so I got Shadow of the Empire.
Yeah.
I've got
Benedict
Mysteries of the
Cumberbundle.
So I've got
So-
Mysteries of the Sith, I've got Jedi Academy, Jedi Outcast, Dark Forces 2, I've got Force Unleashed. It's all these classic games that the nostalgia is completely real for.
With Steam, a couple of years, because I've got a Mac. When they did the first ever Humble Bundle, it was about what, $10 to $12? Was it something like that?
Yeah.
I bought it on the spot, got like 12 games. This is incredible. And I've realized I had a max, so I wasn't actually allowed to play any of them except Jedi Knight Outcast 2, which is one I had as a kid, so I was fine going back and playing that. And then I also got Force Unleashed, which was abysmal to play on a computer. Mac. Lego Star Wars was Windows only, which killed me. Then Battlefront 2 was PC only again. So a memory card was on my parents' old computer.
Did you not
Windows.
read any of the, the list?
I was just I'd paid $12 for any of them as a whole. But here we go. I've got them all here. So I had Empire at War, Dark Forces, Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Academy, Knights of the Old Republic, Republic Commando, Star Wars Starfighter, another classic one from my youth, Battlefront 2 original, Force Unleashed 2, and Knights of the Old Republic, the second one I can't remember. That's my Steam, and I could only been able to play like 3 of them.
It's that's a bad time. Like, look at all these games. I've got 2 games.
It all went to charity. That's what they say. The EA Humble Bundle.
But I think we go back to this, but I think the nostalgia thing takes you back. But some of the games now, you do find are a little unplayable when you get them. Like, oh, you play this level, like, oh, this is great, but I'm done with this now, and I'll put something new on.
I mean, I could put them on my work laptop, but I'd probably get sacked.
Yeah. However, talk about Battlefront 2. George, do you want to jump into EA Battlefront 2?
Yes, I do. This is my second choice, correct?
Yeah.
Obviously, because it's Battlefront 2. Now, one of the most famous games of all time because of its launch, because of how they really messed up. Everybody in the world heard of Battlefront 2. The most downvoted Reddit comment in history. The awful main menu with the holograms. The unsatisfying storyline where it was marketed for 8 months as you're going to play as the villains, and you played the villains for approximately 2 hours. This is a game I took a day off work to do on release. And my word, I still bloody loved it. Even on launch, I won't lie. I had the VIP, so I got it 3 days early. I also spent £40 online to get all them cards to be ahead of the game. Don't care about what people say. It's not pay to win. It's just paying to be ahead. And it was incredible. In the build-up to this, if you guys remember off our channel, I bought myself a 4K telly. Bought myself a 4K Blu-ray player. Nothing to do with this. Bought myself a PS4 Pro. This was all for Battlefront 2. My entire setup was redesigned for this. And to this day, I still loved it at launch. But in all of EA's credit, they acknowledged the awfulness. They fixed it. They took their time to fix it. They did the right thing. 2 years later, they are still adding new content. Tell me the last modern online game which had new DLC coming out 2 years after. That's like a studio game, like a AAA. That's not Fortnite.
It's hard. No, you're right, and it is something that to that level where they're doing not just new skins on things, which sometimes it is, but looking at brand new content. I mean, I think our last update that we got in the time frame is we're going to get some new single player levels coming up. So it is quite a big thing for that to happen. And you're right, there's not many games out there that will be putting so much into their game at this late stage. You would think it would probably be moved on to the next one.
Well, the problem is it took them a year and a half to get the game to where it should have been at launch. That was the issue. I love the game at launch. I love it now. I still play it. The problem is it took them so long to get the game to the point where it should have been originally. Yes, they put their hands up. Yes, they admitted to it, but the damage had been done by that point. They should letting the game speak for itself has been good. It's just taken us, unfortunately, too long to get to that point. And again, it hasn't even stopped them from having problems since then. Okay, so it's like, cool, here are the new Clone Trooper skins, but you're going to have to either pay like 40 quid to unlock them, or you're going to have to spend God knows how many hours slowly earning the credits to buy them. And that's always been my issue with the game. It's been a great game tarred with EA's mistakes.
Yeah, it had that issue, and you're absolutely bang on for that. And I just think that, you know, it reached a point where some of it I didn't mind. I don't think it's wrong you had to unlock Luke and Vader with credits. Is that just me? Maybe, but you did story mode. You basically got all of them. If you did the story first, man, it wasn't a hard thing to do. And some of the criticism was fully justified.
I loved the story, but at the same time, I hated it because I always been a single player person anyway. In terms of, I know Dave, you're on the same wavelength. You're not particularly great at the multiplayer, so you have a bash. But I always love storylines. I always love seeing what the story is, where it goes. Especially with this one being a canon story, I was like, great. Let's see what they add to it. Let's see what they can do. And then it was just that bitter disappointment. I was like, cool, we're going to play as the Empire, play as bad guys, cool. Oh, she turned within 2 levels. Oh, I didn't see that coming. And it's just shockingly disappointingly.
That was my issue. You shouldn't start to end as the villains.
Yeah.
But one of the other things I have an issue with is that not gun games, but that kind of Battlefront, Call of Duty, Battlefield, any storyline is 6 hours max. That's the issue. Not with like the industry, but that's just how that genre is. So it was insulting not to get anything on the first Battlefront, but for that one, we got something. And you know, it was, as they all do, they know the focus is on multiplayer. But that's why I'm happy that the issue is that we had nothing else except for this. Now we're in a situation where, thank God, we've got that narrative game coming, because we need that to go with the other things.
Yeah, Fallen Order is very much a needed game. I can't wait to play it. The comic is coming out as well. The first issue came out this week, I believe, last week. So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Battlefront 2 is an absolute. You're right. Now it's a much more playable game now than when it came out, and you're right. I do wish they'd brought. This was the launch game that'd come out, and it would have been it was massive selling when it first came out, but it had a massive drop off. But I think it's probably picking up again to a steady amount of purchase again because of what they've brought out and made this game so much better than it was. But you're right, and for multiplayer, I'm not great at multiplayer. I know, George, you are pretty much, you love the multiplayer side and shooting off people online and ruling leaderboards.
I've had so much fun at this. Even like Heroes v Villains, just being able to be those characters is just so much fun. But I've put a lot of man hours into this. I platinumed it and everything, so I just hope that the content they could bring us. So I've not played it for about a month or 2 now. No, I've not gone off it, but you know when you go in patches where you play one game more than everything else.
Yeah.
I'm in that vibe with FIFA at the minute, so it will get its due, I'm sure.
Absolutely, without a single doubt.
Yeah, I love it. For me, it was also the case of playing when they introduced Battlefront 2. It's a case of like, right, now we're getting Clone Wars, we're getting the Last Jedi content, but so I was slightly disappointed we didn't get any Rogue One content. That would have been cool. Is it more of we got some, but not enough.
I would have rather seen Scarif and Ewoks.
Yeah. They
Agreed.
teased Scarif, man. It was in the storyline.
It did, yes, absolutely.
Like Scarif Tower, it's confirmed.
I've never forgotten.
I watched the TIE Striker. I play a lot more of the X-Wings, TIE Fighters, the actual space battles. Then again, are you two really surprised considering my other hobbies?
No.
They was what I was best. I used to like piss about with my mates and say that I was the best pilot in the galaxy. We say it in GTA, it's a joke. I'd always steal the flights. I was the best in the aeroplanes. I'd always win. Battlefront 1, there wasn't, obviously you had the Death Star mode where you got to be in the airplanes, but I was like, this is my jam. I'm always going to be the best at this. This is the game I get passionate about.
I always put a cockpit view as well. I'm like, I go full ball.
I did when I had VR. I did try because even if it wasn't VR, it would basically be an IMAX screen on your head. But I was not prepared to look up when I should be able to do it. The online the space battles were incredible. And again, without getting arrogant, this was what I trained to do a lot, and I made sure I was always in the top 3. Not if pretty much always guaranteed. If I'm not in it, it's because I was joining late. Problem with the space battles is they died. Just everyone just stopped playing space battles. And I ain't going to wait 20 minutes to go into a space battle match when I could have already done 2 heroes versus the villains.
Yeah.
That's my only criticism was that they haven't got the
Yeah,
match.
this is why I did space battles offline.
Yeah,
you
it's
know
been a
what?
computer. It's not really a challenge.
No, it's not a challenge. But again, it's like I'm not going to wait 20 minutes to find a match.
I'd rather wait 20 minutes than do that online than the computer.
Yeah, but that point, again, cool. I'm just gonna be a one ship. I'm not gonna die, and I'm gonna see if I can get 100 versus 1, and I have done it several times. However, we're gonna move on to our next pick, which is shuffling in order is going on to me. So, my number 2 is Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. Oh, now this game full of full of nostalgia for a lot of people. Oh, that cover just there. Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer is probably one of the funniest games you'll ever play. If you've never played it, try and play it somehow, either on an N64 or emulator, or I don't know if you can get it on Steam, whatever. However you play it, no matter what method you use, play this game. It is so much fun. It's very simple. You have your own pod. You go through a bunch of levels. You play as Anakin. You play as Sebulba. You play as you have all of the characters and name ones. We can have your own as well. You're playing on different tracks, not only more sizely, but it expands into the rest of it. And it's kind of like it's almost Mario Kart meets Star Wars in a way, but without not as wacky. But it's just so much fun. It's just one of those games of it's fun. There's no story to it. There's no kind of real campaign mode or anything like that. It's not hard. It's just a fun game that I absolutely adore.
I think George alluded to it earlier that you had the full arcade version as well as your home version, but where you actually sat in Anakin's pod and moved the levers to steer left and right and pushing them both for a boost. And I had Star Wars Racer as a home game, but I also had I loved the pod race game in the arcades.
I think even like 2008, I was on a school trip and it was on the ferry to France. I just stayed there for like an hour straight, just playing this. It's just, I never got to do it like 3-4 times in my life, and I'd never forgotten them. And I just wish, when I turned 16, got my first job, as everyone does, you think you're suddenly a millionaire on like a part time to go with your studies. I looked at the prices of these, and they were like $3,000 before import. And I'm just looking on eBay now. £3,500.
With an open slot for that pound to drop through, I think it's still worth it.
And you know what? It looks really disappointing compared to what I can remember as. I don't think that's the right version, because the one I was in, you had the actual full pod racer thing.
Yeah.
Just like the seats and the actual screen.
Oh, that is disappointing. No, it wasn't. I remember getting in a full pod race and a pod race.
Yeah, there's two versions. There's the cheapy version, which is that one, and there's a full-on, I'm in an actual pod. This is just awesome.
You got that. I mean, you go back even the Star Wars arcade I talked about. You got the same thing. So you get that full cabinet where you sit in, or you get the standard one which just had the wheel in, like the. Yeah. If you're going to play pod race, you've got to be in a pod race. That's without a single doubt.
And you know what?
Bring that out in a VR headset.
This is what I'm saying. In this modern era of gaming and whatnot, of all like even stuff like MotorStorm, all these car racing games that are more not violent, but they aren't typical. Let's race clean, gentlemen. Why haven't they done a modern pod racer game? Like it amazes me. They could do a story, they could do anything, and it's been avoided. And it's quite sad because it would be humongous if they ever did do something like this.
Yeah, imagine pod racer with today's graphics and VR.
It's like
you look at games like Forza, but if you replace those cars with pod racers, I mean, you're right. It could I can't see how that wouldn't be a moneymaker without, it seems crazy to me that, like George said, that someone hasn't jumped on this at Disney and gone, this is the kind of game we should be putting out. A fun game.
This is the year to do it as well. 20th anniversary of episode 1. This is the year to do it. They should have done it.
They did it a couple of years ago and you could buy it on the store, which I did, and it was severely disappointing. But again, it's the context of this is modern day versus this is what it was, and I think that's the thing. Films age differently to games, and games.
It would need a full update, yeah.
But I would love to see a modern version.
It would need a complete either relaunch or just a new version, basically.
A linear storyline as well. Anything that could be done, just do it. There's pod racing. Give
us full customization. Give us like billion parts to choose from to build your own pod. All the rest of it, just go completely ham. So yeah, I play Forza Motorsport a lot. I play Horizon and things like that. I'm a massive motorsport fan. And this, I just give me this. I would just play the crap out of this. I would.
Be amazing.
Oh, it would be. Although, to be fair, though, just to briefly go back to it, you could also play. I remember playing Shadows of the Empire in a cabinet as well, and again, not only Rogue Squadron, but was it the TIE Fighter of the X-Wing series as well? I remember playing in a cabinet again. So it was that kind of late '90s, early 2000s kind of. The game's been around for a while at that point, but that's that again. My period of this is my introduction to Star Wars gaming.
I think we now move into what was my second choice and the hardest game I have ever played in my life on the Nintendo, the SNES, the Super Nintendo, Super Star Wars. This was at a time when this is the first sort of side-scrolling Star Wars game that I'd ever played. So you got this lovely side-scrolling, you were Luke and you were going through Tatooine, and who knows how the levels got after that, because I could not get anywhere on this game. It had weird worm things that jumped out at the end of the first level on Tatooine, and it just beat me every time. And I played this game a lot, but I could get nowhere on it. But for the fact it was Star Wars side-scrolling, awesome John Williams soundtrack done in 16-bit was just something to be held. And yeah, it's my second choice because I played it a million times and I didn't probably get off this first level very many times at all, but just again, that sense of nostalgia and going back to my old Super Nintendo, which I loved. And yeah, just a great game.
It was.
Yeah.
I have played it, but then that was a passing go as well. So again, for me, it's a little bit before my time, so I can't really give you much extra on that. And if I can't give you that, George definitely can't give you any extra on that one.
That's really okay. Honestly, when I put it in there, I thought I'm going to do want to talk about this, but it's fine. It's my number two choice, but there's nothing more to say about it. But how hard this game was for me.
Yeah,
and I think that takes us to really. We've got our top choices left for this evening show. We're going to start that with Phil. Your number one choice for your Star Wars games.
Yep. So my number one choice is, for me, very, very simple. It's Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. I'm going to wait for you to put up there we go. Oh, that logo. So when I could get that on Steam, I bought it immediately. As soon as I found out, basically, I've played that game so much over the years. I was introduced to it, again, funny enough, by Robin many, many years ago. I remember going to his house, playing the hell out of it. But it was the fact that I also got it on my own, and then you could mod the crap out of it. Now, this is it's not only your first kind of foray into a full-on single-player campaign, but it's also that first multiplayer. For me, it gave me both in one. Jedi Academy, you chose your own race, you chose your own lightsaber color, you chose your own hilt, you chose what you wore, and it took you through what at that point was Kyle Katarn and Luke Skywalker after episode 6, having started their own Jedi Academy, as it says in the name, and you trained as a Padawan through to being a Jedi Knight, through to I think Jedi Master, I can't remember. But at the end of it, you got your choice between the light side, the dark side. When you got to Korriban, you could either, or just before the level just before Korriban, you were either going to go and take out the Sith, or you're going to join them. It gave you the choice between the two. The levels themselves, brilliant. Gave me one of my favorite Star Wars quotes of all time from a game perspective, which is, "And then Jan punched a weak way right in the," and that won't make much unless you watch the cutscene. But trust me, it is brilliant. It's a sequel to Jedi Outcast. So Jan Ors, and that is the Jan's been referred to, voiced by Vanessa Marshall, who, funny enough, then went on to do Hera. So that was her first foray into the Star Wars universe as well, before basically taking over our favourite Twi'lek. But going back to Jedi Academy was a game that not only did it offer you that single-player campaign, you had two endings to choose from, which for me at the time was revolutionary. I didn't know that you could have choices in games. I thought you just played through, and so to actually have that, again, for me was revolutionary. And then the multiplayer. The multiplayer, again, was just fantastic. It gave you choices between characters to choose from, both the light side and the dark side. You could play against the light side, dark side. You had capture the flag. You had just a full-out assault. You had objectives. You had it gave you a world of options. And then came after that, for me, what was brilliant, modding. First my first experience of modding a PC game where you would just download so many extra pieces, like giant lightsabers, cross-guarded lightsabers, fine enough, long before Kylo got his. You had different types, double-ended sabers, but you also then had sabers, full-on like actual maces and all the rest of it, whips and that kind of jank that goes on with it. You could then replace like the Force Lightning with Force Flamethrower. You could have different levels and different. It was just so much extra to put into it, and that's why this game for me I absolutely adore.
I haven't played this game. I
struck my head.
In actual preparation for this, I did actually be your number one choice. I went on YouTube and had a quick watch. I think it must be the opening level where you're going to find Luke on, I think it's Yavin 4 you're on, and you're looking for Luke, the temple that he's got, and it starts and takes you to Luke in training at the very start of the game. So we watch it through, and it looked like cool. It wasn't obviously Mark Hamill voicing Luke, but it was lovely to see Luke Skywalker again after Jedi, where they had this story of carrying on with the new Jedi that he was starting, which obviously now kind of a little bit ties into what obviously has gone after 6. So who knows how much eventually that might give us from that sort of storyline. But yeah, it looked really cool, and it might be something I might pick up because I believe it's actually still available on the Xbox store. So I think it might be something I'll eventually have a look at picking up as well on there.
I lie, I haven't played this one. I had the second one, which I never ever got past the first level. I don't even know how or why as a kid. So I just remember the second one, that logo, but the second one was the black one with the blue. This is the sort of the sort of granite kind of.
You got the first one. This is the second one. It's Jedi Knight 2.
Okay, I'll play the first.
You're the Jedi Outcast. Great game by itself, but yeah. No, that's fine. I was saying, yes, you can get it on Steam and you can get it on PlayStation Store.
That one works on Mac.
Yeah. Well, you can get it. It's fine. It's coming back though. Jedi Outcast and Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Academy are coming for the Switch and the PlayStation Store and the Xbox. I think you can already get Xbox, but it's coming at the end of this calendar year. I think it's in November. I think it's been announced for. Either way, you have no excuse to play it. It's an amazing game. Get it.
my issue with all of these re-releases they keep doing for Star Wars games, I think Bounty Hunter's got a re-release. They always come out like a week before the new one. No one's going to play them for like 3 days if they come. You know what I mean? It does my head in. Release them 6 months in advance. Don't do it the week before. Don't tie it in. Just release it, man. There's always been so much.
Play Jedi Academy. It's a great game.
I've got a game I still need to 100%. Which
I don't care.
Which this game that is 100% is that game we're moving on to next, George?
It very well not Mary Berry, very well maybe.
Mary Berry maybe. And I had exactly the same pick for our number one game on this list, and that list ended with me and George picking.
I'm not gonna lie, before you start, it was going to be on my list, but I saw your two list. I can't be a third. I can't put a third person and put this on the list. I have to do something different.
You were wrong not to include it. Because
absolutely, Phil. I'm with George on this.
About the greatest Star Wars game in history, no questions asked.
The incomplete saga.
Next year. It's now incomplete. I mean, even before it was the complete saga, it was Lego Star Wars 1 and Lego Star Wars 2.
Yeah.
I remember.
You forget the Lego Clone Wars. Why do people hate on that game? I love it.
Because it was awful, and I traded it in after like one level.
I couldn't get past the first level.
I'm over halfway through it. I love that game.
You're the only one. You'd probably include it on your list. The complete saga, I've got so many memories of. I mean, without jumping the gun. Lego Star Wars 1, I got on my 11th birthday. It was the 9th of July. Sorry to give it away. It was 2006. Not for 6, sorry, 5, my 9th. I went to the cinema to watch War of the Worlds. And after I used to go to cinema,
that was your mistake right there.
No, it wasn't. It was a great film. It still is. Now, after I saw that, we went to Toys R Us. And obviously, as I said before, I didn't have games back then. I didn't have a PS2. I had a PC. I was taken to the shop to buy this on Lego Star Wars 1 on PC, and it was the most incredible experience for the next year playing it. Then, obviously, at that age, you didn't know much about games. What happens the following year? Lego Star Wars 2 comes out, and you play both of them. Oh, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if they could somehow link them together? Then I got a PS3, and I got it in like 2007, and I'm quite sure that within a couple of months, did it come out in 07 or 08? Apologies on the year, I've got it wrong. The
'07, I think.
I got it for my birthday that year, like birthday money off like a family member, and I was nostalgic, even though it had only been 2 years. But having everybody together, it was the most fun. Having it on a console was even better for me because I never had it on a console, and it's just what Lego Star Wars is. What evolved from Lego Star Wars? It's one of the greatest games ever made. Do you have a go? Sorry, I'm taking the time.
Yeah, no, I know that. I'm literally going to jump on exactly what you're saying and be like, yeah, I adore this game. I still have this on my Xbox One now. It was a major download to my library that I have to have. And not only have I played it through to completion, which is great because that's the one thing you want to do with a game. It's one of the only games I've ever gone through and got 100% on, done everything. But it was also now, it's my son who's 4. It was his introduction kind of to Star Wars. He loves this game. He loves picking the characters. He loves going to different levels. This game, as his first introduction, is such an incredible way to do it. Lego, like no other company, kind of get this material and how to play it that they have. Yes, it's a Lego characters jumping around, but they do settings so well, the level design so well, and the humor behind what they do is quite incredible. And I mean, we say now, like George said it, and Phil said, the incomplete saga. We are going to get the Skywalker saga game coming at the very start of 2020, very end of. I don't know if it's just after.
I'm hoping we've got it for I reckon. I'd love January. I think that'd be a push.
It was January, February time. Yeah, it was.
I think February, March.
It's going to be soon after the rise of Skywalker, and I can't. Honestly, it's literally on top of my list of games I want to play. I can't wait. I love this game. When we decided this was going to be a list about games because of things coming to Switch and also the announcement of Star Wars as Battles, they're calling it Star Wars Battles, the Command and Conquer skin game basically that they're bringing out. But this was top my list without a shadow of a doubt. I knew as soon as it was announced what was going to be my top 1 game, and this is it for me.
It's the thing is, even today, there's so much replay value compared to so many other games. Even though we've had, what did they do with Episode 7? Straight away, they did Lego Star Wars Episode 7. Jump the gun wasn't that good, didn't work out, was still good fun. They had Harrison Ford record dialogue for it, which is probably one of the most ridiculous things Lego.
One of the biggest achievements today is getting Harrison Ford to actually record audio for it.
I was more surprised that they did that rather than pay £650 for Star Destroyer. Now, it wasn't even. It was just like the combinations you could have, the gameplay, the fun. There was anything and everything, and there's so much that can be said about it. But the legacy that it has, it was the first Lego game of any kind. Not any kind. The modern Lego game, I guess you could say, there was like Lego games that weren't actually the Lego games you know and love today. But this kickstarted Lego's foray into video game, properly into video games. I'm saying, and this also did a lot for the Star Wars branding. Don't forget, Lego's first ever branding was of Star Wars. How right they were to make it the first video game. Oh Christ Almighty! The game next year is going to be. I'm going to be far more excited for that than I am for Fallen Order. Doesn't matter how good Fallen Order is; it's probably going to be incredible. The day the new Lego Star Wars comes out, I am taking that off work. I don't care. I'm having that time off. I've cancelled a holiday now. I've got time to spare for Star Wars.
Unfortunately, we have lost our roaming reporter for next year's.
We'll discuss that on Wednesday, though.
We'll talk about it. Yeah,
we will.
Yes.
Lego Star Wars is the one. It has the biggest legacy, and just everything about it is perfect. Even the grunts.
Even the levels. That's the thing. When I play it, I turn off the recorder and just put the grunts on. I prefer it that way, the old school way. It's just it's a brilliant game. I mean, I do love it. I just didn't want to put it on my list because you guys already had it. But yeah, not gonna lie, probably should have put it on there. But it was just, yeah. How can you not love it? And how also, yeah, it's a perfect way to wrap up this video with a game that all 3 of us have played, have loved, and will happily play it again. And I'm looking forward to next year. I don't have a PS4 or an Xbox One. I have a laptop. I probably won't run it. I'm going to get a PS4 at some point. Maybe just wait for PS5. We'll see. But I will be getting the new Skywalker Saga when it comes out, and I cannot wait for that either. And I think that's about it for this evening. Is there anything else you guys want to add to these lists at all? Or if we're just all good.
Major shout out to one I should have included but forgot to, which was Revenge of the Sith. Other than that, nothing really.
And I'm all good until we meet again on Wednesday.
Indeed, so am I. So, as per usual, we've been Dave, George, and Phil. This has been Ones the Force of Star Wars podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Force Podcast or at the Ones the Force of Star Wars podcast. You can find the audio version of this later on Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes. You can find the video later on YouTube, and we will be back on Wednesday with our next show. So, we Ones the Force. May the Force always be with you. Good night.